Also here in DC in the studio is Robert Grenier, a former top counter-terrorism official at the CIA. Thanks for joining us. Sir, is this, do you think, directly related to the Palestinian attempt to unilaterally declare statehood? The Palestinian Authority has made it clear that we're going to do this whether you like it or not, and we're going to go through the UN. Is the Quartet fighting for legitimacy by trying to say, hold on, we're involved here, and it's up to us to make that call?
Well, I think that's the sentiment on the part of certain parties within the Quartet, particularly the Europeans. I think the Europeans are saying, look, it's very clear that the status quo is not viable. It's very clear that if nature takes its course, the Palestinians will go forward with an attempt to win a UN resolution. They are all agreed that this would not be a good thing, and yet it's only the Palestinians, or rather the Europeans, apparently they're pushing for a new initiative on the part of the Quartet to try to break the logjam.
If you have the Quartet endorsing the formation of a Palestinian state in the future based on the pre-1967 borders with agreed land swaps, as they mention it, would that lead to further isolation of Israel, because Israel doesn't want something that explicit? It says, yes, a Palestinian state may be okay, but it doesn't want to talk about the details. Would that not also perhaps corner the United States? Because if the other three members of the Quartet, the EU, the UN and Russia, are calling for this, surely the United States has to go along and maybe distance itself a bit from Israel.
Well, I think if the Quartet were to do that, that would create some embarrassment for the United States. But let's remember that President Obama himself, just in late May, just a few weeks ago, called for essentially the same thing. Now, he was providing it in the context of what I would describe as brotherly advice. He wasn't putting this forward as a UN-backed, or rather a US-backed initiative.
But immediately after that, at AIPAC, he seemed to have backtracked a little bit.
Yes, and so clearly he paid a political price for that, if for no other reason than because it so upset Prime Minister Netanyahu. If the Quartet were to push for such a declaration, they would be doing nothing other than simply quoting the American president. Now, that would create a little bit of a discomfort for the Americans, but I don't think the Americans would allow themselves to be forced into accepting a formulation that they didn't want to. And in fact, I'm very skeptical that at the end of the day, the Quartet as a whole will do that.
How would the United States justify opposing the formation of a Palestinian state if the Palestinians decide to go ahead in September and unilaterally declare? How would they find the justification to say, no, this is a bad thing?
Well, I think we've just heard it from the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State has said that no, the devil is in the details, that yes, we support the formation of a Palestinian state. However, the basis upon which to do that has to be arrived at through direct negotiations between the parties. That's the formulation that the U.S. continues to use.
It's not a very strong one, is it?
It is not a very strong one, and obviously the United States and specifically President Obama are going to be mortified in UN when they are standing virtually alone with the Israelis if this UN resolution goes forward.
Robert Grenier, thank you very much for talking to us.
You're very welcome.